the wonderful thing about doing my apprenticeship there, we had a taste of different aspects of commercial cookery.
Yeah.
One day you're cooking for a refinery, the next day you're doing a boardroom dinner in Combank, right? So you were shifted every 6 months to a different location over a period of 4 years, and that gave us the strength to be versatile in many aspects of commercial cookery.
Right.
So we had a function in the middle of COVID that we had to do in the Northern Territory for 600 people, and the kitchen had skeleton staff. So I took a couple of gun chefs, what I like to call, Troy Cow or Peter Van Ness, I'll give them a shout out. We hopped on a plane, we flew into Northern Territory, we worked with the team on the ground, we won their trust, and together we pulled off a function for 600 people in a quarry in the desert. It's about making the participant feel relaxed. It's about guiding them to success. And it's about learning from them as well. Like I said, we're a big sponge. We learn all the time. A lot of the time I learn when I've judged those competitions about what that young chef's done, what methods done. How does Sam Burke relax on the weekend? Well, I sit on a milk crate.
Yeah.
I have a charcoal barbecue and I grill meat over the fire and eat around the fire.
Yeah.
Right? And then some beautiful composite salads, and then bring the family around and eat straight off the barbecue. So cool. When you started as an apprenticeship for this company that had 30,000 employees at the time, and you rose yourself to the top, that was a defining moment for me. And then joining this wonderful job has been a defining job. The last 11 years at Meat Livestock Australia has been electric. Working with chefs and watching them succeed. Working with them together, right? And then watching them. It's like you pass the football and they get it and they go to the scoreline. They score the try, and watching them succeed. And then taking a backward step and being proud of what they've achieved with beef, lamb, veal and goat on menu. That's what gets me up and to work every day.
Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel and another episode of Passion to Profession Chef's Edition. Today we have Chef Sam Burke in our studio. He's going to take us through his inspiring journey from the first day in his kitchen to the journey to becoming an executive chef. He would be sharing with us some valuable lessons, memorable moments from his journey, and tell us more about what continues to fuel his passion for the food industry. So welcome on board.
Righty, Knox, we are here. It's fantastic
Finally,
to be here. Yep.
I'm so excited to have this conversation with you.
And me too.
Yeah, so before we jump into the long part of your journey, I would really like to know, was becoming a chef always your plan, or it just happened surprisingly for you?
Well, that's a great question, right? So I remember finishing my leaving certificate in 1993. I'm showing my age now. And the principal said, Sam Burke, your HSC won't be worth the cardboard it's printed on. Right. So I had to think fast, and I'd been working for a long time since a young child, you know what I mean? So year 5 at the age of 10, I was delivering milk around the neighborhood as a milk boy. And I always was a hard worker. So I loved food. I love to eat. Look at the size of me. I'm over 110 kilos. And I also love cars, right? So while I was at school, I knew I wasn't going to get a good leaving certificate mark. So I did some work experience, or what we used to call, back then we used to do placements at school in industry, to help us out. And I did 2 weeks as a mechanic and 2 different placements as a chef.
Okay.
And I love the cooking more, right? So yeah, I wanted to be a chef when I left school.
So like doing that certificate course was the first step towards becoming a chef?
Yeah, so I finished my HSC, finished school's out.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, the first time I cooked Aussie beef, I was 16 years old and I was working at the great Golden Arches McDonald's.
Okay.
So I worked at McDonald's at a store on Parramatta Road. That taught us great procedures, great systems, a bit about cost of goods management, how to work under pressure, and how to get a quality product up time after time. So those fundamentals kind of breached me into commercial cookery, right? So yeah, worked there for 3 years whilst I was at school.
Okay.
And then after that, believe it or not, I worked in a butcher's shop in a supermarket for 7 years whilst I was doing my apprenticeship. And also, you know, on the weekends, I'd work in a butcher's market, you know, in Leichhardt. So it kind of like the dream job I've got now. It's cooking and it's dealing with meat. Yeah. But that kind of formed my, if you like, my structure to become a chef. You know, it gave me a taste, if you like, of what's to come. And that's it. Yeah.
So, like, what were the challenges back then when you wanted to become a chef, or, you know, what was it like in the first day of the kitchen?
You know what? That's a great question, Veda here. And back when I finished school, Australia was in a recession. And our Prime Minister at the time, Paul Keating, it said we were in the recession that we had to have, right? So it was very hard to get an apprenticeship. For my role, I worked with a big commercial catering company called Spotless. There was 5 roles and about 80 applicants to get an apprenticeship. So you had to, so that experience working in McDonald's, working in the milk run, working in the butcher's shop gave me the leading advantage to secure that indentured apprenticeship. So, you know, I was quite fortunate and lucky, and it was my one chance. And although I probably wasn't the most academic student when I was at school, I always knew how to work hard and how to network and how to get a good result. So that helped me win my apprenticeship.
Yeah. So as you mentioned that you were not more into academics, did you manage to find, or were you lucky enough to find a good mentor when you were starting in this journey?
Yeah, I had many mentors, but I guess I worked for the great thing about the company I worked for was a big commercial catering company. So we had a hybrid of different businesses, right? So we had boarding schools, we had corporate offices like Commonwealth Bank. You know, we looked after they had their own restaurant. We looked after leisure facilities like reception centers, stadiums, the SCG, which you've told me that you work at yourself on a previous conversation.
Yeah.
And also the football stadium, we had it back in those days. So the wonderful thing about doing my apprenticeship there, we had a taste of different aspects of commercial cookery.
Yeah.
One day you're cooking for a refinery, the next day you're doing a boardroom dinner in Combank, right? So you were shifted every 6 months to a different location over a period of 4 years. And that gave us the strength to be versatile in many aspects of commercial cookery.
Right. So your work was more like a mentor to you more than any particular person.
Yeah, I missed the question there. So I worked with a lot of different chefs, right? So back in those days, there was a lot of European chefs, a lot of good Aussie chefs. And believe it or not, some chefs that you've had on this podcast, Eddie Coffey was my chef when I was a young graduated commis chef.
Okay.
There you go. So it's a small network. And what helped me, or the way I looked at it, was that you took the fundamentals away from what you learn at TAFE, so college of commercial cookery. You took the different learnings from chefs that you worked with. And then with all that information, you developed your own repertoire when you finished your training. So back then we did 3 years on the job. 1 day a week we had to go to college. So I used to go to ride TAFE. And then we had 1 year to go, which was full-time on the job. So it's a 4-year apprenticeship. And at the end of it, you got a Cert 3-4 in commercial cookery. And you got an indentured certificate saying that you're a qualified cook, because you're not a chef. You become a chef over time. When we finish our apprenticeship, we are cooks, you know, so we learn and we develop and we never stop learning in our trade.
So when did you realize you wanted to take on bigger roles in the kitchen?
Great question. I guess I was a good worker and I was a good networker. So to give you an opportunity, before I got to that aspect, I wasn't only a chef in my young days. I used to DJ nightclubs, and this is not a lie. I worked as a cleaner after hours. I worked for several different companies as a chef or a cook, if you like. And I also used to do my role at the butcher shop, which I was talking about. So I had that hybrid of different work experience to enable for me to save. But I met my beautiful wife as an apprentice too, because she's a chef.
Okay, beautiful.
And I felt it's time to get serious rather than scattergunning and doing 6 jobs. Concentrate on the one job and advance my career. So I had 2 opportunities. I had an opportunity to develop in retail through my role at the supermarket with the butcher's company called Franklin's Big Fresh, or I had my opportunity to further my commercial cookery career, and I chose the commercial cookery career. So as soon as I finished my apprenticeship, I went into a chef role and looked after a small site, which we did a lot of work for the Commonwealth Bank. They used to have a training centre out at St Ives, where they used to send their staff to do training, and I used to work in the kitchen there as a sous chef to start off with, and then eventually just rose through the ranks, through a variety of different kitchens. Yep.
So how was it like from starting with from being a cook to becoming a chef, sous chef, and then an executive role, an executive chef? So how was it?
No, good question. You never stop learning. So just reflecting back on those times, I had a challenging mentor by the name of Phil Gilroy. He was a chef from Yorkshire, and he used to be the executive chef for CBA, Commonwealth Bank. They had multiple kitchens across the CBD in Sydney.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd do a full day in the kitchen. We'd do all our pastries. We'd do all our mise en place. We'd run an a la carte restaurant from 12 till 2:30. And then at the end of it, we'd clean up the kitchen. And then he'd call me in the office to do purchase summaries, stock takes, ordering. And at the time, I was upset. I go, "You're the manager. This is your job. Why am I doing this? Right? I'm the apprentice chef.
Yeah.
I'm finished for the day." But what he was really doing is nurturing me to be a business unit operator, to learn the ground fundamentals on how to run a commercial cookery operation. And I thank him to this day.
Yeah.
Because at the time, I was a young 20-year-old chef that thought I knew better. But that accelerated my growth, if you like, into running bigger kitchens by having that training at a very young age outside just being a chef. Because there's a lot of good chefs, but then there's an aspect of running a business which is a completely different avenue, right? How do you get your cost of goods right? How do you get your labor to balance? How do you make sure that you're making an operating profit?
Yeah.
How do you invoice? How do you reconcile your invoices on time? How do you stock take and take that away from your cost of goods to work out your gross profit? All those aspects I still use today when I'm working with chefs, to understand their challenges. Yeah.
Yeah. So as you mentioned that, you learned these skills very young. So managing large scale food productions must be a challenge back then, especially because the limitations that we had in terms of technology. So how did you adapt?
I'm not that old, am I?
No, but I mean, 20 years is a long time. Every single day, new things are coming in the tech world.
Yeah, fair call. Fair call.
And especially in the kitchens. So how did you adapt to leading teams and handling high pressure environments in that time?
Well, I guess it's there's one thing about me, right?
Yeah.
It's sink or swim. And it's you put your head down, you have a plan, and you work hard, and you treat people with respect, and you network. And if you say you're going to do something, you do it. And that's kind of like been my motto all my life, and never stop learning, right? So I'm not saying that when I finished my apprenticeship, I got everything right. I actually had a time where I had to step back to a junior role, reassess, and then come back and grow further, right? So I guess for then it's all about learning, right? It's about like learning to walk when you're a young child. You stumble, you fall over, you get back up, and then you perfect it. And that's what commercial cookery is about, and that's what running businesses is about. It's about learning, listening, experimenting, taking bold challenges, and then learning from the mistakes you do have so you don't do them again.
Yeah.
Right? Because you've got to understand that not everyone's perfect. There's times where you do a mistake, and that's all right.
Yeah.
But what have you learned from it? And how do you better yourself? And how do you take things to the next level and keep on evolving? And setting short-term goals. And when you get to those short-term goals, how do you get to the next goal?
Yeah.
And you got to be relentless. You got to be hungry.
Right.
Yeah. Things don't happen just land in your lap. You've got to want it, and you've got to believe in yourself.
Right. 100%.
Yeah. And you've heard that from a number of guests that you've had on your podcast.
Almost all of them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm.
So talking about evolving in the roles, do you remember your day when you were told that, okay, Sam, you're going to be an executive chef and you will be starting as an executive chef from tomorrow? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. And
how did it feel like?
Hairs went up your back, a touch of nervousness, excitement, and the opportunity to win respect from your team, because you're only as good as your team.
Yeah.
An executive chef doesn't make the journey alone. He's grounded by good people that come along for the journey.
Yeah.
A leader takes people along for the journey, right? They don't do it themselves. So I guess that's something I learned from a very young age, even before I started my apprenticeship.
Yeah.
And I've always tried to bring people along for the journey, and build those networks. And there's people now that I've known for 31 years since I've been cooking that I still talk to every day. And that's the great thing about our industry.
Yeah. So, talking about the industry, do you remember any moment in your journey as a chef that there was a huge disaster, but now you look back at it and you laugh about it, but that time it was such a mess and you walked out of it with such a great victory? Yeah,
there's plenty of times, right? I'll give you an example. We had an event a few years ago and this shows about having networks and people that believe in you and want to come for the journey and want to work with you for the better, for the greater of good. So we had a function in the middle of COVID that we had to do in the Northern Territory for 600 people, and the kitchen had skeleton staff. So I took couple of gun chefs, what I like to call, Troy Cow or Peter Van Ness. I'll give them a shout out. We hopped on a plane. We flew into Northern Territory. We worked with the team on the ground. We won their trust, and together we pulled off a function for 600 people in a quarry in the desert.
Okay.
Right, and did 600 steaks medium rare on a flat plate barbecue, right, and served it. You know what I mean? But that just wasn't me. That was a team. We had a person there who worked on the grill plate, who actually ran that facility, who helped us out. He was integral. We had those two chefs that came over and worked with me as a team to empower the staff that were all there. And, you get it done. And at the time, you don't eat or anything. You just got your head down to make sure that function's a success. And then all chefs will agree with me. At the end, we don't eat. And after everyone's finished, we'll get a packet of crisps. Or we'll go to McDonald's and get a cheeseburger on the way home at midnight. Or we'll go to a late night Chinese restaurant and have a feed there, because the adrenaline's so on to get the job right that we don't think about ourselves. We think about the end consumer getting the best possible outcome and the best result, whether it be anything that we do, So look, these things, that was just 5 years ago. So let's not talk about what happened in the 90s. Things like this always happens.
Exactly.
It's about how do you adapt, and how do you continue, and how do you succeed. I've taken on crews and we've gone to Belgium and did functions for 600 people for the European Parliament, right? We've done events in London, same thing. Bring people along for the journey, brief them well, put in the preparation, what we chefs like to call mise en place. So get all the preparation right. And then when you get there, you have avenues if things go wrong. Big thing about commercial cookery, put the work in prior. So when you're there, you're prepared and you're relaxed if things don't eventuate in the way that you'd like them to go.
Right.
So there's always going to be challenges. Things happen. Every chef will tell you that. But how much preparation have you been put in before to avoid those challenges when they happen, or if they occur? Sometimes they don't occur. Most times they don't occur. But if you're prepared before, you can alleviate the issues as they arise. So that's the same in everything.
Yeah.
Do your homework.
Yeah.
You're going to study. You're going to pass. Don't do your homework. You're going to struggle.
Right.
Right? It's very much the same in the kitchen. Do your preparation. Know what you're going into. Know the logistics of the site. Know the people you're working with, and you'll succeed.
Right.
Mm.
So like always prepare for the worst, come what may.
100%.
Yeah.
Always forecast what's the very worst can happen and try to prepare yourself to alleviate that challenge. And never think about that too.
Yeah.
There's always a way out. There's always a way out. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's just how much you know, have you got invested to make things go right? If you panic, that's the worst thing that can upset you.
You're
And
going
we
to mess
always
it up
panic.
more. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I still panic today at times,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Look at all my grey hair. You know?
So you are known for your love for Australian beef. So what makes these ingredients so special to you?
Well, not only Aussie beef, lamb, veal, and goat.
Yeah.
So, look, like I said, I've grown up with it, right? I guess my love for, let's start on lamb, started when I was a very young kid.
Yeah.
I lived in inner Western Sydney of Ashfield, and I had Greek, my two best mates were Greek. Every Saturday they'd be doing these wonderful souvlaki and lamb arni, like whole lambs on the spit, and you'd have this wonderful smell wafting over the fence. And I used to go over there and hang out and eat all these wonderful Mediterranean foods.
Yeah.
And that gave my love for lamb, you know what I mean? The protein that could be shared across many different cultures. Beef, you can't be Australian if you don't love a steak, you know. So I love my steaks. I love my product. I work for a young, as I told you a few times today, in a butcher's shop. So it was always going to be my passion. When you do something from a young age, when you love it, you never work a day in your life. So does that answer your question? I think maybe navigated around it, but yeah.
Mostly.
Yeah.
Since you mentioned that you're an Australian and there's no way that you wouldn't love your steak. So what's your tip to cook the steak perfectly?
The perfect steak.
Yeah.
Well, what we like to say at MLA is make sure you have a steak from about 2.5 to 3.5 centimeters thick, because the thicker the steak, the more control you've got to do over the degree of doneness. Take the steak out for 10 to 15 minutes to come to room temperature before you cook. Have a hot spot and have a cool spot on your grill, so you've got control. A lot of people, when they put the steak on, it's burning, they just leave it there. If you've got a cool spot, you can move the meat over and control. We season the steak with a neutral oil, like a vegetable oil, because we don't want the olive oil to overpower the flavor of the meat. Sea salt, both sides. And then I get the grill nice and hot, and I put the steak on the grill to get a nice crust. Crust is flavor. And then for me, I know when to turn the steak, because I see little puddles of juice coming to the top, and it's a good indicator. I can touch it with the tong and know when it's time to turn the steak. But for the average consumer, we like to tell them to invest in a meat thermometer, and we've got all the temperatures available on our websites. So for a good medium rare steak, I'll take it 54 to 56 degrees Celsius, right? So I turn it when those juices come, put it on the hot grill again, put my probe in. When I get that core temperature, I take the steak off. I rest it for half the amount of cooking time. When I rest it, I lightly put aluminium foil over it. You don't wrap the steak, because that keeps on cooking it. There's an oven. And then I season it again with sea salt and a bit of cracked black pepper at the ends. And when you're resting it, you're allowing the juices to redistribute to both ends of the steak. And then you've got a wonderful eating experience, right? But we've also got tips and tools to help everyone out. So free prize for everyone here at the Knox Podcast. I want you to go to your Android store or your iOS Apple store and download SteakMate.
Okay.
So SteakMate.
We'll be noting it down.
And that will guide you through to how to nail the perfect steak. You put your steak in, the app tells you, you put your size of your steak in, you put the cut in, and the app guides you through the process to cook the perfect steak. So we've got the Roastmate app, we've got the SteakMate app. They're the tools that we develop at Meat and Livestock Australia to help out the consumers to nail that product time and time again.
Right.
Because red meat's not a cheap product, it's a premium product. So we want to make sure the consumer nails it time and time again, So they keep on purchasing it.
We can already see her searching that on Google.
Fantastic. There we go. And that's and I've just been on a cruise ship with our good friends at Carnival Australia out on the Cunard Queen Elizabeth ship. And that's what we were doing, lunch and learn sessions where people came and ate in the restaurant and we told them how to master the steak and all the different attributes between dry aged, wet aged, different types of breeds, different types of cuts, you know, and it's making sure that the consumer feels comfortable to cook our product.
Right. That's amazing. I mean, helping your community, like empowering them into making the best use of the ingredients, I think it's phenomenal to do that.
That's our job as chefs.
Yeah.
Pass the knowledge on.
Yeah.
Don't hide the recipes.
Yeah.
Pass the knowledge on. Nurture the knowledge. I think in Australia, and I'm a father with 3 daughters,
Yeah.
the most important things in Australia is to learn how to swim, right? Because we've got beautiful beaches and ocean.
Yeah.
So you need to know how to be a strong swimmer and need to know how to cook. They're the 2 life skills I have.
Yeah.
Because you can do those things, everything else is easy to learn,
Yeah. 100%.
right? So, you know, you need to learn how to cook.
Yeah.
So get in that kitchen with your family, learn just some basic principles, and you'll set yourself up for life.
And I really think cooking is a therapy.
100%. It's
yeah.
relaxing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially when you nail that dish.
Yeah.
And when, you know what I love, Vadhi, when you've cooked that dish and there's silence
Yeah.
when everyone's eating. Because when they're talking, a chef always checks the plate at the end
Yeah.
to see how much food's on there.
Right.
And they look at the ambience of the dining room.
Yeah.
When there's quiet, people are really into their food.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a really good sign.
Yeah.
Not that happens all the time. I
But-
guess what I like to encourage is great conversation begins at the table too.
Right.
So I try to get my family around the table every Sunday for a family barbecue where we just sit and we reflect on the week,
Yeah.
and phones and iPads stay away
Yeah.
and we just concentrate on the conversation and, you know, love what we're eating and celebrate how lucky we are in this country to have the opportunity to eat such great produce.
Yeah.
You know, fruit, vegetables, meats, dairy, legumes, grains.
Everything.
You
Just
know,
everything.
exactly. You know, how lucky are we? You
Yeah,
know, so never
100%.
take that for advantage.
Never,
Yeah,
never,
yeah,
ever.
yeah.
So, coming back to our conversation, so judging food competitions must be fascinating, I'm sure. And you have judged a fair few.
Yep.
So, how was your experience with that?
It's about making the participant feel relaxed. It's about guiding them to success. And it's about learning from them as well. Like I said, we're a big sponge. We
Mhm.
learn all the time. A lot of the time I learn when I've judged those competitions
Yeah.
about what that young chef's done, what methods done. And anyone says that they don't learn is kidding themselves. And it's about encouraging and nurturing and making them feel good about entering, because it takes a lot of courage to enter
100%.
a culinary competition and put yourself out there amongst others, right? A lot of courage. So you want to make sure that participant feels valued for what they do. And a lot of participants that I've judged over the years have looked me up on Facebook and Instagram and still talk to me to this day and are now running big enterprises in commercial cookery
That's
and
amazing.
food service. Many of them,
Yeah.
you know. So yeah, that's my answer to that.
So, as you mentioned, like, have you ever been surprised by any dish or any contestant while you were judging?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been many dishes that I've been surprised in, you know, across many different proteins, because you can cook, but then there's the art of plating too,
Right.
to make sure, because people eat with their eyes. So the way someone's plated or different elements of the dish, you could have a smooth texture. You could have a slightly caramelized texture, how flavors marry together to give the overall perspective of the dish.
Yeah.
There's many different facets that come together that surprise the palate, right? And so I don't always look at the way it's garnished on a plate. It's about the taste as well. Did you season? How was your workflow? Was the bench messy when you were working, you know? Did you get everything up on time? You know, were you working safely? There's many different aspects. It's not just the end dish. What we look at when we're judging participants, it's about the workflow. It's about getting things done on time. It's about marrying flavors, presentation, and overall, it's about having fun. It's about making sure that those chefs in the making return back and have another try at it.
Right.
That's so important. So you want to encourage and nurture people.
It's a big
to come along
responsibility.
for the journey.
Yeah.
Yep. They're the future of our industry.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have worked on product development and global marketing as well.
Yep.
So how has it changed your perspective on food?
Good question. So I've been fortunate enough to travel around the world and cook around the world and work with some great chefs around the world across Europe, the Middle East, Asia, and I'm even lucky enough to be going to the US this year.
Okay.
And I guess what I do is I take my knowledge over, but like I said before, I learn from what they're doing and take that education back to my own market here in the domestic market, and kind of infuse that into the people that we're working with, because it's not all about internet. There's a lot of information. There's an overload of information out there today, but still nothing's better than on the tools, learning, and then experimenting with others in different cultures, and then taking those learnings back and sharing them, and then developing your own repertoire, like I said. So you've learned how to make this wonderful sauce. How do I accustom it to the way that I like to cook?
Yeah.
A great example is, not sure if you've seen Spice Journey by a really good friend of mine, Shane Delia. He's a proper top hatted chef in Melbourne, right? And what I love, he did a series with SBS where he went over to the Middle East and Europe, and he learnt all these authentic dishes, and then he came back and he put his own twist on them in his restaurant in Melbourne, Maha. So that kind of stuff really inspires me, and that's the way I like to learn too. Take the methods that you learn and put your own twist in it and make it your own.
Right.
And then, pay homage to who you've learnt it off as well, and give the recipient a bit of tips and tricks about what you know as well.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Both ways.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So you've traveled so many countries, and I'm sure, especially when you go to Asia, there are so many different countries with different food palettes.
Yes.
So is there something that you learned there and you still incorporate in your cooking?
Yeah, 100%. That's a good question. So, Japanese was fantastic. I've been to Japan twice, and what we learnt there is they don't have these big center of plate steaks. They have a lot of different types of dipping sauces and smaller portions and yakiniku cuts and the way that they eat is very petite, delicate, neat, clean, and is something that we've adopted into our cooking too. It's not just about having big 350 gram steaks with coleslaw, chips and peppercorn sauce. It's about having a variety of different garnishes, different condiments, and then having a centerpiece meat in the middle of the table that people can share, right? Because it brings theatre to the dining experience. So I guess we've adopted that as a multi-pot of cultures here in Australia that kind of share family cooking, right? And rather than having big main meals. So I learnt that in a lot of Asian countries, different ways of eating and different ways of serving proteins, and then adopting them into what we do. I've been fortunate enough to go to Thailand, China for work as well, which has been fantastic, I got a bit of a shock when I went to China because I was always used to the Chinese takeaway. As a young Aussie kid, having the Mongolian lambs, beef and black bean, the sweet and sour pork, the chicken chow mein, whatever. But when I went over there, the cuisine was completely different, right? So I was expecting to eat that. But I learned, I was only young back then, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you learn, and I've been to Korea as well. So, you can talk with authority when you've worked in those markets because you've learned, right?
Yeah.
But I don't say, you can't learn in 2 weeks, right?
Never.
But it gives you a little taste to the cultures.
Yeah, you're exposed
like your
to
wonderful
that.
cuisine, Indian. I love it too. All those different types of condiments and small dishes and rices and, those aromatic spices. Fantastic way of eating. I told you about that restaurant before we went on air. I was in the UK last year called Dishoom.
Yeah.
And as a franchise, I think they've got about 6 of them. I really want you to have a look at it, right?
All right.
And what they did is they brought out these little composite dishes and different rices and dals and cooked meats and grilled meats, you know, and chutneys and naan breads and you know, and it was fantastic. We had to line up on the street in downtown London an hour and a half to get in, and they were bringing out these beautiful lemonades for us to drink in the hot English sun while we were waiting to get in. But what an experience!
That's a classic Indian beverage, if you might say. You get it on streets on India, like for maybe 5 rupees.
Fantastic.
And it's just amazing how different cultures have something to bring, but at the same time they are connected to each other in ways you don't even.
Well, let me talk about my beautiful wife. She is Australian born, but her parents are from Syria.
Yeah.
So you talked about my proteins and my love for beef and lamb. They are the masters of lamb.
Yeah.
Right? They do their beautiful lamb shawarma. They do their kaftas. You know, they do all different types of meats. They do wana aneb, which is like vine leaves wrapped with rice and lamb mince. You know, what I've learned from my wife's culture in 2 ways: around my hips, right, and the way they cook. I've infused that into my cooking over the years.
Yeah.
You know, I'm very lucky to have a chef at home that teaches me all the time as well, right?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So there's a healthy competition at home every day, or?
Yeah, I'm not allowed to cook in the inside kitchen. That's her kitchen.
Okay.
So people who know me well and follow me on my social media channels know that I cook outside, and I've got 15 different barbecues.
Okay.
And I'm not lying. That's true. People who know me. And I've got a festival of fire. So how does Sam Burke relax on the weekend? Well, I sit on a milk crate.
Yeah.
I have a charcoal barbecue and I grill meat over the fire and eat around the fire.
Yeah.
Right? And then some beautiful composite salads, you know, and then bring the family around and eat straight off the barbecue. So cool. And I have my music in the background because, as I told you, I used to be a DJ. So I get my DJ stuff in the background. And there's even been a few times where I've done a few mixes and then cooked at the same time, multitasking, right? So, I feel pretty proud when your daughter who turns 18 asks you to DJ her party.
That's so great achievement,
right? You know what I mean? So
yeah.
How many fathers can say that, right? They usually kick them out on their 18th birthday.
Yeah.
So I'm a people's person. I love to party. I love to have fun. I love to share.
Yeah.
Chefs don't even want to eat. We want to see the people happy.
Yeah.
We want to cook the food and we want to see their enjoyment.
Right. Yeah. I saw your wife got you a barbecue themed cake for your birthday.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did some good investigation there. Yeah. My daughter's made that. Yeah. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah. It looked pretty yummy.
Yeah, it was fantastic. It was fantastic.
Yeah. So moving on.
Yep.
What are the biggest lessons that you have learned over the years in the food industry, specifically in Australia?
Yep, keep learning. And I'm serious about that. Like, technology evolves all the time. Sous vide, combi ovens, what these ovens can do these days are amazing. I work very closely with a company called Unox, and a big shout out to Wayne and the team out there. These ovens, they've got Siri built into them. You know what I mean? They can cook different temperatures on different shells. They can grill, you know, so it's about evolving yourself and not only learning about the methods of cookery, but learning about the technology to support the methods of cookery, because kitchens don't have the brigades they used to have. So we need to be able to stay in touch with trends. We need to be able to listen to our clientele that we're working through to understand their problems, understand their pressures, and then reverse engineer solutions to make them have success. And that's your role as a corporate chef, right? You got to keep on evolving. You got to keep up to trend with not only the skill set, but the technology that's become a lot more sophisticated than what it was just 20 years ago. And you were right. You made the call. I joked about it before.
Yeah.
But, you know, commercial cookery equipment has come a long way.
Yeah, it's like it's evolving with every year.
We've
every
got
month.
hot fridges that pasteurize food.
Yeah.
We've got combi ovens that I just told you about. We've got ovens that you can, I've got a brand new oven now and I can control it by my phone.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So say if I've got a slow cooked brisket overnight at 92 degrees and I'm catching the train into work and I've got a client coming in at 10 o'clock to eat that product and I want to give it a burst of hot heat to give it a nice caramelized crust, I can log into that phone and talk to the oven and inject more heat or inject more steam and really manage the process along the way. So
That's so cool.
You need to be invested in the technology to stay relevant to the customer.
Yeah.
Because things are always changing.
100%. I can't agree on that more. Because the more you evolve, the more you adapt, I feel the more you're relevant.
Yes.
It brings out comfort in you and your customers.
Yes.
How you help them, how you empower them.
Yes.
Because of this, they trust you more, and then that way the business also evolves a lot faster than it would have otherwise.
100% correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stay relevant, stay humble, network.
Yeah.
Continue learning, and do what you're gonna do what you say you're gonna do, and do it to the best of your ability.
So, if you could go back, is there anything that you would do differently or wish you had learned sooner?
I would have bought 4 houses when they were $200,000 each in the 90s. Right? No, yeah, of course. Yeah, we could always do things better in the past, but that's part of learning, right?
Yeah.
You look at things, and then you look at what did you learn from the process? Like I said before, what did you learn from the process? And how can you make things better, and how can you share those learnings so other people can come along with the journey, right? And that's what we do. That's my role, as a corporate chef. Listen to the customer, explore their challenges, immerse yourself in their business, and then reverse engineer solutions that make them win with red meat on menu.
Is there anything you want to tell young Chef Sam and start your career on a different note?
Good question. Young Chef Sam, probably slow down, listen a bit more. But when it came to the work ethic, I wouldn't have done it another way. Okay. Network,
amazing.
Work hard, put your head down, and the rest will come to you, It really does.
Yeah.
Right. You've got to work hard. You've got to be invested. You've got to be passionate, and it'll come.
Yeah.
Everyone's got an opportunity to succeed in life. It's how hungry do you want to do it? It's how much work you're going to put into it.
Right. And
then at the end, how can you share and take people along with the journey with you? That's what leaders do. Take people along with the journey with them.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite memory over the past years? There might be a couple of them. Sure.
Favorite memory is getting married and having 3 beautiful daughters. But in commercial cookery, I guess for me it was the progression of my career. Mm-hmm. Like before I was with Meat Livestock Australia, I worked with another gentleman called Glenn Flood under a mentor called Catherine Mitchell back in the day. And I mention these people because they'll be watching these podcasts and they need to be called out. And we looked after 185 sites across Australia, steering the culinary direction. That to me was a thrill. And I'll tell you another thrill. When I was 21 years old and I got an office job out of the kitchen in commercial cookeries in operations, and I had a company car, I thought I'd made it. Right, for me, that was a big thing, to have the company car and the Nokia mobile phone when no one had a phone back in the day. And, that was a big milestone. I thought I made it then, but it was really the beginning of the journey.
Yeah.
All that's material, right? I guess it's a big highlight for me was in that same company where I did the apprenticeship, was as a young first-year apprentice, rising to the food development manager for the whole of the business with Glenn Flood, the gentleman I was talking to you, across 185 sites, right? So that to me is a kick me moment. When you started as an apprenticeship for this company that had 30,000 employees at the time, and you raise yourself to the top, that was a defining moment for me. And then joining this wonderful job has been a defining job. Yeah. The last 11 years at Meat Livestock Australia has been electric. Yeah. It's been hard work. I've thrown everything into it, but I wouldn't have done it another way. And I love the people that I work for, the producers, the backbone of the industry, the farmers, the whole supply chain. What an organisation, what a company, what a wonderful opportunity to share your learnings and learn from them. The true paddock to plate ethos, you know, what happens on the farm, how does it get to the processing unit, how does it get from the processor to the wholesaler, how does it get to the wholesaler to the end of the consumer, all about grading for our Meat Standards Australia program, you know, how do you have consistency in the product that you serve every day, how do you guide people, how do you, you know, my biggest kick is too, working with chefs and watching them succeed. Working with them together, right? And then watching them. It's like you pass the football and they get it and they go to the scoreline. They score the try, and watching them succeed. And then taking a backward step and being proud of what they've achieved with beef, lamb, veal and goat on menu. That's what gets me up and to work every day. And then, you know, working with wonderful people like, you know, Catherine, my manager, you know, we've got Doug, our butcher, Julie that works with me. Adam brought her up, fantastic lady. You know, our brand marketing team, you know, we've got such a diverse array of talents. We've got doctors, we've got vets, we've got, we've got a variety of different people within Meat and Livestock Australia who you continue to learn of. Our managing director's a fabulous guy. Started from the bottom, you know, worked on production systems, worked in grading, you know, is a producer himself, like all these wonderful people in the industry. You go out to the farm and you see the producers and you learn from them, and then you convey those learnings back to the chef, because the chef loves to hear about what the farmer's doing.
That's really amazing. I mean, I'm kind of speechless. It's incredible of you to do that.
Well, it's and there's many other in this industry that does it. It's just not me. It's many other. So I guess for us, it's about really ensuring that the end consumer has that very best experience with whatever they're doing day in and day out with red meat on menu. That's our drive, to grow demand and make sure that people have success with the right cut, cook by cook method. Whether you're a consumer, whether you're a chef, or whether you're just having a barbecue on the weekend, or a retailer, the mission's the same. Have success, grow demand.
Amazing. So now we are going to move to a bit more fun.
Yep.
So I'll be asking you, or I'll be shooting at you some interesting, fun questions. And you have to be really quick in answering those. You can't have long minutes to think about it.
All right.
And the quicker you are, the more candid you are, I feel.
Okay, let's do it.
So let's start. So what's your favorite Australian ingredient to cook with, apart from the meats that you love?
Salt.
Salt?
Love it. No, I love it. Yeah, it's the seasoning, salt and pepper.
Yeah.
Season everything, yeah.
Okay, tea or coffee?
Coffee in the morning, tea at night.
Okay. One kitchen tool you can't live without?
My chef's knife. 20 centimetre Trident Wusthof chef's knife.
Okay. Your go-to dish for a quick meal?
Go-to dish for a quick meal, steak.
It's not a quick meal.
No, toasted sandwich. Toasted sandwich. Love a toasted sandwich. Yep.
So if you were to host a dinner party for 3 people, who would they be and what would you cook?
My dad, who I lost a couple of years ago. Love to have him back just one more time around the table. 3 people. You made that hard. I've got a family. If I leave one of my daughters out, I'm going to be dead. I guess Phil Gilroy, who was the chef who mentored me as an apprentice. And my beautiful wife. If I say that, I'm in trouble. If I don't mention her. Yeah.
And what would you cook for them?
What would I cook for them? You know what I love? You know what my comfort food is? A good old hamburger with some hand-cut double-cooked chips.
So you'll cook that for them?
No. I do whatever they like, right? We could do a beautiful... I love my barbecue, so a banquet barbecue of some type, with awesome, interesting sides and relishes and sauces. I love cooking over fire. You don't get me in the kitchen.
Yeah.
You get me cooking over the fire.
Kitchen. Yeah.
I'm the outside man, so cooking beautiful red meat with a variety of different condiments and sides, and then celebrating it in the table together as one.
That's nice.
I can do the other type of cooking too, but you asked me what I like.
Yeah,
right?
Of course.
That's me. Yeah.
Then if you were not a chef, what would you be?
Probably a mechanic.
Yeah,
I love
because
cars.
that was your choice.
Yeah. So I've got a V8 car, and I love driving a hotted up car around the weekend.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And the last question, what is that one dish that you could eat every single day?
What do you answer that for me?
Steak!
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Steak. And I do love porridge, believe it or not. I have a bowl of
Okay.
oatmeal. You know, I love
That's like
porridge.
two
rolled oats.
different...
How's that? That
Yeah.
for you, didn't it? No, steak. Yes.
Yeah, a steak.
Steak, yeah. Love it. Love a good rib fillet, Scotch fillet steak, 350 gram, about a marble score free, cooked to medium rare. Shut the gates.
Amazing.
Love
You
it.
did wonderful.
Fantastic, my friend.
And lastly, I would like to ask you if you have any advice for the to inspire young chefs or people who are starting in this journey.
That's an easy one.
Yeah.
It's going to be a hard slog. Put your head down, network, concentrate, study hard, be passionate about what you do, and never stop learning. And you will succeed. The world's your oyster. If a chef can do it who got 36 out of 100 in his HSC,
Yeah.
you can do it. And one thing I left off, I went to university when I was a elderly person, you know, with when I say elderly, 36 with 2 kids. So uni wasn't my time when I was young, but I reversed my career and did the study later. So just concentrate on what you're doing. The world's your oyster, and don't tell anyone that you can't do it.
Yeah.
Get up and keep on trying, and you'll get there. You'll get there. Trust me. But you got to put the work in. Nothing's easy.
Amazing. I just loved having this conversation with you, and I'm sure everyone's gonna have fun watching it, especially the IP that you gave out on how to cook the best steak ever.
Yeah. And download the app.
Yeah, definitely.
Knox, who's there? It's been a pleasure. Thank you, my friend.
And this episode is gonna be talk more about steak.
Yes, my friend. Indeed.
But it was amazing. So make sure you watch the entire episode and the entire series, Passion to Profession Chef's Edition. And if you like it, don't forget to leave a comment and subscribe to our channel. Thank you.